Welcome to the show. I'm thrilled with today's guest. He's been here once before. He's been gracious enough to come back again. The great Jake Tapper, one of the most important voices in journalism today. Keeps getting more important. He's a multiple #1 Times New York bestseller. He's written a whole bunch of books. He's, of course, the host of The Lead, which is must-see TV. And he's got a new book out, Race Against Terror, Chasing an Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of the Forever War. It's a book. It's a nonfiction book. It reads like a novel. We're going to talk a lot about that. Welcome to the show, sir.
It's great to be here, Donny. You are a voice, and let me just say that you are a voice that that is well needed and appreciated from those of us out here. Even though you don't work for CNN,
okay, I appreciate that.
I appreciate you out there.
I appreciate you saying that. Means a lot to me. Most important thing, let's talk about your recent appearance with Jimmy Kimmel on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire with Caitlin Collins. You got stuck on a question about Reese's peanut butter cups. Let's go back to that. Relive that pain. Relive that pain again.
I didn't know. I didn't know what it was called. I didn't know what a Reese's I didn't know what the globule was called. We went through. I mean, it was really. First of all, we were really excited because we got up to 125,000, which is not nothing. And we should have just dropped it at that point. But you get in that show and you want to earn the money for your charity and all that. And I was doing it for Homes for Our Troops, which is this great charity. And we didn't know what it was. And then we 50-50'd it. And then it came down to two things. And then we did our Lifeline, and our Lifeline told us the wrong answer. And
who was the Lifeline?
It was another CNN anchor. I don't want to get her in trouble, but
okay.
but I'll say I didn't know, and then I came home.
I never heard of it. I never knew that.
So it came down to, for anybody, it was is it a pad or is it a plug? And our Lifeline said pad, and we didn't know, so we said okay, pad, and then it was plug. And I came home, and my 16-year-old boy said, I knew what that was. Why wasn't I your Lifeline?
Yeah, there you go. There you go. Can't win with teenagers. Let's jump right into the news. Obviously, big story with Jimmy Kimmel. You were on both Seth and Colbert this week. On Colbert, you said, quote unquote, this is before he was put back on there. It's a direct violation of the First Amendment. If we do not have the ability to criticize, mock, and investigate our leaders, then we no longer are in the United States of America. And I don't think anybody could have said that better. What are your thoughts now that Kimmel's back on the air of the whole episode?
Well, I'm glad that Disney listened to reason, and I'm sorry that it all happened. But one of the things that's odd right now is this revisionism being attempted, that this had nothing to do with the government, specifically Brendan Carr, the FCC chairman, telling local ABC affiliates to not air Kimmel, which, within hours.
How can somebody think it's not a government involvement? I mean, it was pretty crystal clear the chain of events.
Because they don't want that story out there. There's always this alternative reality, and you have this, oh no, he was dropped for bad ratings. Oh no, he was dropped for this. And first of all, if he had been dropped, he wasn't dropped for bad ratings. I mean, yes, everything in linear television and cable television is in decline, pretty much. I mean, so yes, but he wasn't dropped for bad ratings, and you don't suspend somebody on a Tuesday or a Wednesday for bad ratings. That's a much bigger decision. This was because the government said, we don't like the speech, stop airing it. And affiliates and owners of affiliates that have business before the FCC that need Brendan Carr's approval for mergers and such said, how high do you want me to hop on? That's what I'm going to do. And it was very discouraging. We've seen, this is not the first time in the history of the United States that we've seen the government
Nixon, of course.
tell,
right.
Nixon, but also just where there was, revelations about what the Biden administration was doing to Facebook and Google and YouTube in terms of stuff having to do with the January 6th insurrection, stuff having to do with COVID, this and that. And, I just think that the government should not be in the business of telling private companies what to air and what not to air. And it's a really slippery slope. And I'm not comparing what, the COVID stuff with what Brendan Carr did, but none of it's acceptable.
Obviously Trump's been testing the boundaries of democracy. This seemed to really hit a nerve with a lot of people. A lot of Trump voters also that I talked to had issues with this. This was obviously, we've seen Ted Cruz and Rand Paul and some other Republicans come out, but this hit a nerve. This was whoa. Well, so many people that I talked to who, as I actually said, are Trump supporters, were like, no, this is a bridge too far. There's something wrong here.
I think there are a couple of reasons for that. One, it was so stark, right? I mean, they could have done it much more intelligently,
yes,
Donny.
yes,
I mean, they could have somebody could
behind
have
the
said
scenes,
something to
yes.
Nexstar and said, "Hey, have your affiliate in Ottumwa and then your affiliate in Kansas, do this," and then it appears like a groundswell of the Vox Populi as opposed to the government telling them what to do. But two, this free speech issue has been one that's, it hasn't only been from the right. It's also been from the left, telling people what they can say, what they can't say, et cetera. And I think that there was a legitimate belief by some conservatives that Donald Trump would be all for free speech. And in fact, he said so
in his inauguration address. Sure.
Yes. And he also said so, and J.D. Vance said so in February when he went to Munich. I think it was Munich to lecture the Europeans about their lack of commitment to free speech. And he said something like, whatever you say, even if we disagree with you, we'll fight for your right to say it. And they didn't fight for, not only did they not fight for Jimmy Kimmel's right to say it, they led the charge to get him off the air and then tried to deceive everybody about what the reason was. And so, I think, we should say, yes, Mitch McConnell, Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, that's three. That's three.
I know we take victory laps over that, and it's 3 out of
and
infinite,
like there were other conservatives,
Candace
Ben
Owens,
Shapiro,
and
others.
On everything.
Owens, but the entire operation at Fox, who, for the love of God, when Obama was declaring Fox not a legitimate news organization back in 2009. I was a White House correspondent, and I said, why is it appropriate for a White House to be doing this? Now, I have my own opinions on Fox, and they're not really relevant to this conversation. The point is, why is a White House saying this is not legitimate? Why is that appropriate? And I think I thought at the time that it wasn't appropriate, and I think it today. And what the short-sightedness, and it's all just about people's enemies getting their just desserts, but the short-sightedness of not understanding there will be a Democratic president someday.
Yeah.
And in the same way Donald Trump imposes, you have to call it the Gulf of America or you can't be in the press pool, which is what he says to the AP. What's to stop a Democratic president from saying to Fox, you don't talk about the transgender community the way we want to, therefore you can't do X, Y, Z. And again, I'm not comparing Gulf of America to the transgender community, but I'm just saying people will use this power. Once a president creates a new shiny toy to play with, the next president takes it and uses it in new ways.
You talk about someday we'll have a Democratic president again. Doesn't look like that right now. The Democratic Party looks pretty damn lost. And my concern about the Democrats are, starting with New York City, Mandami's going to be our new mayor, which I'm very concerned about. And the Democrats are going to see, let's go hard left. That's the winning formula. That's the way to beat Trump. And I think it's a losing formula. It certainly doesn't win in Michigan and doesn't win in Wisconsin, places like that. I'm curious your state of the Democratic Party from your point of view.
Well, if you look at polling, the opinion of the American people when it comes to the Democratic Party is abysmal. I just saw some Reuters Ipsos poll the other day that was just about issues. Which party do you trust more on specific issues? And the state of the economy right now, and Republicans still had like a 20-point advantage.
Yeah. Even
though the tariffs are wreaking havoc with the lives of so many small businesses, and inflation's on the uptick, and unemployment's on the uptick, just slightly, but still, it's not a great economy right now. So, it just says to me that their messaging is horrible, and they don't know what they're doing. Every time I ask Rahm Emanuel about Mom Donny, he immediately changes the subject to Mikey Sherrill and Abigail Spanberger, who are the gubernatorial candidates in Virginia, in New Jersey and Virginia, respectively. But by the way, Mikey Sherrill's in a real race.
It's in a real race. New poll just came out, Emerson poll, I think, that they have him in a dead heat, which this is Jersey. That's pretty damn surprising.
Yeah, I don't think there's been a Republican governor since Christie Todd Whitman. Is that possible? No, Chris Christie. Chris Christie, yeah. But still, this guy is not a Chris Christie Republican. This guy is a MAGA Republican, and that's pretty stark. And it says something about where the Democratic Party is. Because I'm here in DC, I see the commercials for the Virginia gubernatorial race, and the Republican Winsome Sears, the lieutenant governor, is basically just going after Spanberger, the Democrat, on the trans issue, 100%. That seems to be the entire. It's basically just that Trump ad.
The prison ad.
Yeah,
the prison ad.
She's for they them. He's Winston Sears is for you or whatever. But it's pretty remarkable.
It's amazing that's what they're still chewing on. That's
Who
what,
do you
which
think
is
is the leader of the Democratic Party other than Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries? Like, who do you see? Is there no one
well,
out
the
there?
guy out there who has right now the loudest voice is Gavin Newsom. He seems to understand the economy of attention. He seems to be moving to the center in some of his issues. He seems to be reaching across the aisle. I'm not saying he's the guy. I mean, there's a lot of guys out there. There's Josh Shapiro out there. There's Wes Moore out there. There's Pritzker. There's down in having met down in Kentucky, Bashir. You know, there are a lot of
Sure,
interesting guys, but the guy that's making the most noise now, for better or worse, is Gavin Newsom.
yeah, that's true. That's true. I think the question from the Democrats I talk to, the question about him is not can he win California, not can he win New York,
Yeah,
but can he win
yeah,
Michigan?
yeah.
That's what I hear from that's what I hear from Michigan
Yes,
Democrats.
that would be a concern also. But so we're going to see. It's a long way off. Speaking of elections, are you concerned about the midterms at all? About us having a real, honest to goodness, free and fair midterm? Obviously, there's a gerrymandering issue. There's nothing illegal about that. You can argue about it. But I mean, about let's say the Democrats win and somehow negating the results or anything. You know, we move forward thinking everything. Yes, the next election, and we don't necessarily look back to what happened on January 6th.
I'm not concerned. I guess my answer would be after January 6th, I would rule out nothing in terms of possibilities. I mean, if somebody had said to you, if somebody had described in detail what happened January 6th and then said, do you think that's going to happen? You'd say no. I mean, that wouldn't happen. That's crazy. That's wild. Then, and so after January 6th, and after so many of the Republicans who condemned January 6th then walked back their condemnations, et cetera, I'm not willing to rule out anything that's within the realm of physical possibility. But that said, I don't have any reason to be concerned that the midterms aren't going to be full and free and fair and legitimate and that people are going to be able to vote and such. I mean, we'll see what happens. There's always, anecdotally, there's always, this person was at that poll, or, the new Black Panthers were intimidating people outside this one West Philadelphia precinct. That was a huge Fox News story for a year, but not really. Are you?
No, I can't see Trump wanting to lose any lever of power and everything humanly possible, challenging the results. More of challenging the results after the election would be my concern about certain things that,
Well, there's always that though, right? I mean, there's always House races that are contested. There are always those California races that take 2 weeks before they count all the ballots. I mean, there is, but I hear what you're saying, and I think that's something to keep an eye on without question. But he is right now legally trying to gerrymander some advantages to, and it is legal.
It is legal.
And Texas and Missouri and Indiana and just chipping away here. We'll get one more Republican seat. And, this is something that I've said since the Trump era began, but so much of the American way of life and the checks and balances and so many traditions and norms are upheld by the honor code.
Yes,
and
that's what we're learning. That as much as the founders made this thing bulletproof, it's not. It all depends on.
And it depends on a sense of honor.
Yeah,
and if you're not, and not just President Trump trying to get every advantage he can, but everybody going along with it on his side of the aisle, which is pretty stark.
Speaking of Trump, I had my buddy Scaramucci on yesterday, and he's starting to feel. I mean, if you look at him, he's underwater dramatically on so many important issues, even crime. He's underwater. I don't see it though. I haven't spoken to one Trump voter who's all of a sudden, I don't know. You seeing any cracks in the foundation there?
Not really. I mean, he's been underwater for a little bit, and the truth of the matter is, and this is for an American president to even be at 50% in polling in this era,
never.
Since the election of Obama, it's very rare. So it is over, but it's also just it's not that uncommon. And I just don't know that the Democrats have got this stench of defeat off them yet because of so many of the hangovers of the 2020 to 2024 era, whether it's COVID rules that went too far or, some of the other excesses of that era. Plus, of course, everything that happened with President Biden, people pretending that President Biden had a lot more acuity than he did. Now we have this new book from Kamala Harris in which she's admitting that it was a huge mistake. It was reckless for him to run for re-election without a bigger, more fulsome conversation, that it was obvious that he was not going to be able to handle the rigors of the campaign. I mean, these are pretty stark things for a vice president to say.
You've obviously come forward dramatically with it, and you took a lot of shit from it, which I couldn't fucking believe. I was like, you're reporting in one of the most important political stories and situations in our recent memory, and people are like, oh, Jake, you shouldn't be doing this.
It's so funny. Well, the left is still saying that. The right has now settled into, after attacking, and I don't mean the whole right. I just mean like, the Fox right or whatever. But like, now it's just, they cite my book as as like the expert example of this evidence was proven way back in May. Back in May, of course, they were lambasting me, but whatever. This, look, as Hyman Roth said, Donnie, this is the business we've chosen. Right. So,
by the way, anytime you can get a Godfather quote into any interview, it's so I mean,
it's not like I didn't ask for it. And like, if somebody had said to me, okay, you're going to get a lot of shit, but the book's going to be on the bestseller list for 7 weeks, it's going to get, number one for 2 weeks, and you get really good reviews, and people like Donny Deutsch will like it, then yeah, I'll take that.
Speaking of books, let's tell some of your new book. You're an interesting guy. You do fiction, you do nonfiction. This is a book that it's a nonfiction book, but it could read like a fiction book. Let's get the title again: Race Against Terror, Chasing an Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of the Forever War. And this is a story about, it's interesting about it. Would-be terrorist, was a terrorist, continuing would-be terrorists, and the lengths that America had to go to make sure this guy did not disappear back into kind of the terror abyss, if you will.
Yeah. And having having written 3 novels, I wanted to have this one read like a novel, because it was such a fun and exciting story. So the basic story, just for your viewers, your listeners, is that this terrorist is picked up like by happenstance during the Arab Spring by the Italians.
How do you pronounce it? Is it Ghoul?
Spin Ghoul. Yeah, Spin Ghoul. Just like a Batman villain.
Right.
And Spin Ghoul is just randomly picked up on this refugee boat. And the Italians take him into custody because he admits he's with Al-Qaeda because he has a bullet wound, and they ask him where he got it. He said, I got it fighting Americans in Afghanistan. They call the Americans at the Eastern District of New York, in Brooklyn, and they say, have you heard of this guy? They have, because his name had been mentioned by other terrorists in custody in Gitmo. And so the Americans go to Italy to listen to this guy confess. Why he confessed is a whole other topic, but probably because, well, let me tell you this, you'll like this anecdote. So Dave Bitcower, who's one of the assistant U.S. attorneys, who's one of the heroes of the book, who first told me the story.
He was the one who gave you the idea for the book, right?
Yeah, because his son and my son are friends.
You were at a kid's birthday party. There you go.
Kid's birthday party. He told me the story. So Dave Bitcower went to Yale. When Dave was at Yale, he wrote a piece for the Yale Daily News. He interviewed Ron Darling. Ron Darling, legendary pitcher for the New York Mets.
Number 12. Yeah, okay. Right.
Yeah, won the World Series in '86.
And he's a Yale guy. Right? He's a Yale guy. Yeah.
And he went Yale. And so Bitcower went to interview him about this no-hitter he pitched when he was a Yale student. And Ron Darling, even though he was a major talent, had won a World Series ring, all this stuff, he knew every detail about that no-hitter in college. Every detail. Right. And to Bitcower, Spin Ghoul bragging about his terrorism reminded him of that. It was this guy telling about his best day, or one of his best days. And so Spin Ghoul confesses, and then the Italians are like, great, take him. We don't want him. We can't hold him. And the Americans, it's the Obama era. They can't just take him. They can't just put him in Gitmo. They have to build a case. And so they have to figure out who he ambushed in Afghanistan, who he killed. They have to find evidence, physical evidence, witness testimony, other terrorists he might have talked to, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a book about sleuthing. And this is what attracted to me about it, because like I watched so many police procedurals.
Whodunits. This is a whodunit, but you know whodunit.
You know whodunit, but you have all the sleuthing. You have whether it's CSI or Cold Case or Criminal Minds or whatever. Like I love those shows because I love the sleuthing. And this book is all sleuthing. How do they find a fingerprint of Spin Ghoul that they can tie to this battle in Afghanistan in 2003? And it's all about that story and also the interesting people that were players in the book. So it was a lot of fun to write. An honor is always to tell the stories of service members and do right by their fallen loved ones, but also just to sing the praises of some of these prosecutors and FBI agents.
How do you, just on a personal note, I mean, obviously I know what it takes to do a strip show every day. How do you have time to write a book when you're doing what you're doing? I mean, it's so all encompassing writing a book, and you've written, I think, a bunch of them.
I've written 8.
I mean, how do you even fucking manage that?
So 2 things. One is these are my 2 bits of advice for any aspiring writers out there. 1, write at least 15 minutes a day. Just make that a rule. And if it's at 7:30 in the morning, great. If it's 7:30 at night, great. If you just have your laptop with you at all times and you take it with you to the airport and you're sitting there, you got half an hour before your flight boards, there it is. It's 15 minutes a day. Anybody can do 15 minutes a day. It doesn't matter how busy you are. You can do 15 minutes a day. And, if that's what you do, that's an hour, 45 minutes. That's like 5 pages you've written by the end of the week. So that's 1. 2, I find structure an incredibly important part of writing. Like, I think about the structure of the book for a long, long time. And then I write the structure, and then I look at the assignment like, okay, today's chapter 5 and I'm writing this, and I go do that. And it helps me just organize my thoughts.
And when Dave first told you this story, immediately you said, there's a book here.
Yeah. Because it was just such a great yarn. I'd never heard anything about this guy, and the sleuthing is incredible, and the characters are remarkable. Like, the 2 assistant, like if I'd written it as fiction, the notes I would have gotten back would have been
too broad, too unbelievable,
too on the nose. Yeah. What do you mean? Okay. So the investigators are like this wiry, brainy Jewish kid from New York and his like hail fellow, well-met, waspy friend from Virginia. Give me a break. And you have 2 Muslim women FBI agents investigating this. Come on. Like, but no, that's real. It's all real. It's all real people. And it's part of the American mosaic, and it's just really interesting. And they all have their different motivations about why they ended up in the field they're in. They're one of the guys in the book, this guy, Al Hamdani. He started off as a defense attorney in Texas, and he thought Ashcroft and the Bush administration, they were just lying, and they were just locking up Muslims, locking up Arabs, this and that. And then he had a client who lied to him. And then he became a prosecutor. So there's all these really fascinating stories from the war on terror, left, right, and center.
It's a must-read book. Once again, I want to give you the name of the book: Race Against Terror, Chasing an Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of the Forever War. If you love novels, spy novels, read it. If you love nonfiction, read it. And this is going to be a #1 bestseller for you. I can feel it.
Wow, I hope so. From your mouth.
What's the next book?
I'm working on something right now that is a graphic novel, because I don't know if you knew this, but I draw a little. It was my minor in college. And I went to, a couple years ago, my family and I, we went to Paris for vacation, and we did a trip to Normandy in there. And we, my son and I are really into World War II history. And we went to the Museum of the Resistance while my wife and daughter were shopping. And do you remember, have you ever heard the name Klaus Barbie? You might remember it a little.
Yeah. Where did I hear that name from?
So Klaus Barbie was a Nazi that escaped from Germany after the war and was in Bolivia. And then he was found in Bolivia in the 70s, and then he was extradited in the 80s. And his story is just a really fascinating one, because I'll give you the kind of surprise of the reason why you know the story is because there was this incredible guy, Alan Ryan, who worked at the Justice Department. He was the first person, or the first or second person to head up the Office of Special Investigations. Those are the Nazi hunters, the people in the United States that find the Nazis that came to the United States and bring criminal charges against them. And Alan Ryan basically forced the Justice Department to let him investigate how Klaus Barbie escaped from Germany. Because the truth was that the Americans let him escape. Because he had been, after the war, a spy for the United States against the communists. You might remember, all those listening, like after the Nazi menace was defeated, America turned to trying to fight communism on a dime. It was like all of a sudden, that's all we cared about.
Yes.
And this Nazi was a good spy against the communists in Germany, and the Americans let him go free. Not just let him go free, they brought him to Italy, where this fascist priest had set up what were called the rat lines, which is just the escape routes to South America. So The book is and this is going to take years and years because I'm not just writing it, I'm drawing it, I'm coloring it, all that.
Wow.
But the book is about Klaus Barbie, what he did in Lyon, France, what he did to kill the leader of the resistance, Jean Moulin, who's a big hero in France, and how journalists tracked him down and Nazi hunters tracked him down in Bolivia, how the French got him to France, and then also how the Americans let him free. I just gave you kind of the ending of the book a little bit, that the Americans were guilty, because the first 2/3 of the book about this horrible guy, and then the last third of the book is like, oh, we're the ones that did it. We're the ones that let him get away.
Before I let you go, Trump ran on ending 2 wars. They're far from over, both of them, obviously, Ukraine, Gaza. I'd love your thoughts on
Arguably, they're worse. Arguably, they're worse out now than they were before. I'm not saying it's his fault, but I mean, we're in a worse position now.
And where's the ending in Gaza? It's a Rubik's Cube. I don't see it. And I'm very torn. Obviously, we don't want to see one innocent life lost. Yet there's a part of me that keep going into Gaza because Hamas has got to be destroyed. Yet Hamas can't be destroyed. And
it's an idea. You can't destroy an idea.
So where does this go?
I don't think that it is distressing, the amount of civilians. It's more than distressing. It's horrible. There's a number of civilians that have been killed in Gaza in a war that I was told by the ambassador at the time was only going to last a month or so. I think only the Israelis can end the war, and I think it looks to me like the only way that can happen is if somebody like Yair Lapid or somebody in the, who's not a Netanyahu fan, can force an election and have a new government in there. But I mean, it just seems to me like otherwise, I mean, wars do end. They always end. But
they end when one side surrenders, and that's the problem here. You got a side that's when it ends. And
you have a side that's a bunch of
terrorists. Yes. Mean, it's just simple.
You have the Hamas is a terrorist organization, and they show very little concern about what the impact of this war is. You have the entire Arab League saying that Hamas can't be part of any future for Palestine. And yet Hamas is insisting that they need to be part of the future for Palestine. I don't know when it ends, but it does seem to me like the end needs to come from within. It can't be the United States or Russia or whatever. It needs to be the Israelis saying no more, or the Arab League, which could exert a lot more power on Hamas than they are, also ending it. And in terms of Russia, Ukraine, I mean, that one's getting even more out of control with the incursions into NATO countries. It's horrible.
It's interesting how Trump, all of a sudden does an about turn because he's sensing Ukraine, that Russia is weak and Russia is weakened, and they're not going to come out a winner on this.
Maybe, but also to be candid, I mean, like, Putin is embarrassing him. I mean, there's a degree to which I know Republicans don't want to acknowledge it, but after that Alaska summit, Trump talked a really good game before, like he wanted a ceasefire immediately. He didn't get it. And since then, it's not just been war against Ukraine and the worst drone attack on Ukraine of the war, et cetera, et cetera. It's been, now he's got drones in Poland and a flyover in Estonia. And like, it's just horrifying. I don't know how that one ends either, but as we know, all wars do end. So, I mean, that's my only word of consolation for people between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. All wars do end.
We're going to end on that uplifting note. The book, must-read book, Race Against Terror, Chasing Al-Qaeda Killer at the Dawn of Forever War. If you love novels, read it. If you love nonfiction, read it. If you like Jake Tapper, read it. I like Jake Tapper a lot. He's one of the really good guys in our business. Also, watch Lead every day at 4 o'clock Eastern Time on CNN.
Before you go, I just want to say, Donny, as a Jew, I just want to thank you during this Holy Week for standing up against anti-Semitism on air, vocally, visually. It's really important that people know that we're human beings and we just deserve to be able to live in the same way that everybody else deserves to live. And nobody should assume that we think one way or another or support this government or that government or whatever. And I notice your advocacy for our people and your reminder of folks that we're human, and I appreciate it.
I really appreciate it. That means a lot to me. Jake, you're a gentleman, a class act, and for everybody out there, he's one of the really good guys in our business, trying to do the right thing at all times.
Thanks, Donny.
Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.